Mr. Mayor-elect,
How's it going?
thank you for doing this.
Oh, absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
How are you feeling?
Feeling good. Feeling
Ready?
Good. Feeling ready. Just right over there.
Your new office.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks.
John Lindsay said what? That being mayor in New York is the
Second hardest job
in American politics.
Yes, yes.
When you think about the things that are keeping you up at night in between now and Inauguration Day when you're going to be inaugurated. Are you going to be inaugurated, by the way, on the steps of City Hall?
We're going to be releasing that information soon.
Okay, all right, TBD.
TBD.
What's keeping you up at night?
I think it's the same thing that kept me going through the campaign, frankly, which is the affordability crisis. I think oftentimes we think about these issues solely through the context of when there's an election, but it's continued all the same these last few weeks. You know, my phone stopped working. I went to an AT&T store. I sat across from an employee at a table, and they said, "You've been here before." I said, "No, I haven't." They said, "Well, you look like a regular."
I recognize you.
I was like, yeah. It was like you walk by the store. I was like, sometimes. And I told him I'm going to be the next mayor of the city, and he was apologizing that he didn't know me, and I said, "Not at all." And he told me about his life, and he said every day he wakes up in the morning, he thinks about work, he gets ready, he goes to work, he's at work, he comes home thinking about work, he goes back to sleep, and it's the same cycle. He doesn't have time to engage with the politics of the city around him because he's so concerned about being able to afford this city. And that, to me, continues to be the issue, because if you talk to New Yorkers about their rent, if you talk to New Yorkers about their childcare, their utilities, public transit, groceries, these are costs that are continuing to suffocate them. And for all of the conversation of I'll be the first this or the first that, the first that I'm thinking about is the first of the month for New Yorkers, and how it's still a time of trepidation.
When you heard the president talk about affordability in the speech and after your meeting as a hoax, what's your reaction to that?
I think it continues to be a very real issue for New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. And when I sat with the president of the Oval Office, I spoke about the fact that this is what is pushing New Yorkers out of this city. It's their inability to be able to afford the basics of their life. And I actually told the president that while my campaign began technically on October 23rd of last year, the moment when more people started to hear about our vision for the city was when we interviewed voters who voted for the president, whether Fordham Road in the Bronx or Hillside Avenue in Queens. And when we asked them who they voted for and why, they spoke about voting for the president because of a focus on cost of living. And I told the president that focus continues. People are still struggling to afford the most expensive city in America.
If you ever wondered what happens when a New York City mayor-elect decides he's absolutely done watching federal agencies terrorize immigrant families, today's story answers that question with a thunderclap. Zohran Mamdani, the Queen's firebrand who has never backed down from a fight, just sent ICE a message so loud the echo probably bounced off every courthouse wall in Manhattan. He's calling their raids cruel, calling their tactics inhumane, and calling their bluff on what they think they can pull off in the country's largest city. And here's the stunning twist. He says he's fully prepared for arrest if he has to stand between ICE and the people they're targeting. Buckle in, because we're about to break down 10 explosive reasons this showdown matters. Mamdani's criticism of ICE raids wasn't delivered with timid language or softened political phrasing. He hit federal enforcement with the type of moral indictment that lands like a punch thrown with total conviction. He described recent New York separations, detentions, and intimidation strategies as fundamentally cruel acts that undermine any legitimate claim to public safety. His stance frames ICE's behavior not merely as flawed policy, but as a direct assault on human dignity. And if that sounded bold, wait until you hear how he pressed this point directly to the president himself. During his meeting with the president, Mamdani didn't bow, hedge, or dance around the truth. He told the nation's chief executive that ICE raids destabilize neighborhoods, traumatize children, and rip families apart while accomplishing nothing resembling safety or justice. His argument wasn't emotional theatrics. It was a clear indictment rooted in specific New York cases. He made sure the administration understood these raids don't solve problems, they create new ones. But one case in particular pushed his message from political to personal. Nothing illustrates Mamdani's accusation more powerfully than the story of the 6-year-old Queens boy separated from his father during an ice sweep. The child vanished into bureaucratic shadows, leaving his entire community desperate for answers. Mamdani emphasized that a system capable of losing a first grader is a system unfit to claim authority. It became a rallying symbol of everything broken in the current enforcement model. And Mamdani's ability to understand that fear comes from more than compassion. He's lived it. Mamdani reminded the public that he received his citizenship right here in New York and spent years accompanying family members to 26 Federal Plaza, hoping they wouldn't be detained. These experiences weren't political anecdotes. They were real fear and uncertainty. That background fuels his refusal to stay silent now. He isn't speaking for immigrants from afar. He's speaking as someone who knows what's at stake. And speaking of high-stakes moments, he's already been arrested for standing up for others. Mamdani's response to the possibility of federal arrest didn't contain hesitation or second-guessing. He said he's prepared for any consequence if defending New Yorkers requires it. That level of resolve transforms political rhetoric into something closer to civil rights movement energy. He framed arrest not as a threat, but as a cost he's already accepted. And when federal officials tried to intimidate him publicly, his reply carried even more force. A Homeland Security official suggested his Know Your Rights guidance might violate the Constitution. Mamdani's reply was quick, sharp, and devastatingly effective. He said informing people of their rights is one of the most fundamentally American actions anyone can take. His confidence reversed the accusation entirely, making DHS look defensive while he looked principled. And then came the moment that sent chills through federal ranks. Mamdani's position is simple and extremely bold. If an ICE agent violates New York law, they can be held accountable like anyone else. No badges exempt wrongdoing. His statement subtly reframed the power dynamic. ICE isn't an untouchable force. It's subject to the same legal boundaries as every public institution operating within city limits. But what happens if federal agents escalate their actions? When asked about the possibility of armed federal patrols entering New York's transit system, Mamdani said his responsibility is ensuring such a scenario never materializes. His strategy centers on political pressure, intergovernmental negotiation, and public mobilization to block federal interference before it begins. He framed it as preemptive protection, not reactive panic. And that leads to his broader safety argument. According to Mamdani, New York's safety infrastructure already functions through the NYPD, not federal militarized intervention. He argued that replacing community-based policing with fear-based immigration sweeps destabilizes the city instead of protecting it. His point was clear. Federal agents do not improve safety, they compromise it. And that ties into his biggest theme of all. Mamdani believes the city's leadership must represent the everyday struggles of working people, not political elites. He sees fighting ICE overreach as part of a broader promise to restore trust, accountability, and humanity to New York government. In his view, public office should elevate the voices of vulnerable communities, not sacrifice them. And that's the reality shaping the next chapter of this unfolding battle. What do you think about this rapidly escalating showdown? Does Mamdani's uncompromising stance signal a new era in New York leadership? Or is this city heading towards an unprecedented clash with federal enforcement? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if you believe these issues deserve national attention, and subscribe so you're always plugged in to the biggest political stories shaping America's future. This is Global Pulse News, keeping you informed, energized, and ahead of the curve every time.